everybody. It's take 4 of this episode. We did. I guess I'll say it. I'll say it. We recorded 40 minutes, and I had messed up on the routing of the microphones.
He talked about so much stuff.
And then we did take 2, and Jordan said, "Is it even recording?" She didn't say it like that. She said, "Is it recording?" And I had it formatted a little differently, but it was. And then we did take 3, and the dog that we're house sitting came in.
Dog sitting.
He had to go to the bathroom. So we're on take 4.
Who knows if this will ever come out.
of one of our favorite movies. It's called Glass. It's directed by M. Night Shyamalan. And this movie is completely misunderstood, and it is what some would say, us too, a secret masterpiece. Mm-hmm. We're going to get into...
A glasterpiece, as Blank Check
Yes,
called it.
a glasterpiece. We are going to be getting into all of those details right after the break. No, I'm kidding. It's the Macaw Podcast Universe. Welcome back. My name is Micah Macaw.
I'm Jordan Macaw.
And we cover film franchises. We exist to prove people wrong when they say...
Sequels are never better than the originals.
That's why we're here. And... we've taken a brief interlude from our Batman exploration.
Now the cat is here.
That's okay. He's just wandering, though. And we are now in the end of M. Night's original superhero series that he created. Mm-hmm. And this movie came out in 2019, and we saw it in theaters. And we were pretty excited about this movie.
Yes.
So what was your experience?
I loved it. Saw it twice in theaters. First time you and me. Second time I think with my dad and my brother. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it is truly just it really wrapped it all up in a neat bow for me and subverted expectations that we are now conditioned to, I think, expect from a superhero movie because of Marvel and and DC, all that stuff.
Well, and this movie came out a few months before Endgame. Mm-hmm. So it was interesting that in the same year that like the culmination of 23 movies, one of the coolest franchises ever came out and like really defined the genre as this is what it is in a movie sense.
Yes.
And everyone tries to copy Marvel now. Now you come out with this movie that's completely subverting expectations. And I think that's one of the main reasons why people did not like this movie.
Uh-huh.
And there are people who like this movie, but it's not like people love Split and people love Unbreakable.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of love for this movie. It's more like, oh, I guess he attempted to make a sequel.
I kind of feel like maybe people think like, oh, they talked too much. It was just all talking. And it's like, well, this series is more of a drama.
It's always been more of a drama.
Yeah.
I mean, Split is a pretty tight thriller,
absolutely,
actually.
Absolutely. But there is a lot of exposition that goes on in it.
I feel like this movie's actually the perfect blend of the thriller of Split and the drama of Unbreakable.
I agree. And that's a big thing because you're bringing those two all the characters together with their own stuff.
Yeah. Another reason why I think there's a host of people that don't like this movie is because I think when you finish Unbreakable and you have, 20 years of superhero movies, you expect this movie is going to be David Dunn, like, really fighting the beast, the Horde, and fighting Mr. Glass, and it is going to be, a battle on top of a tower, for example. Mm-hmm. And when he dies in a puddle, being drowned by, like, a normal-sized man, it's a little bit disappointing if that's your expectation. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. This movie is just, I cannot stress how brilliant I think this movie is.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, it's okay if your expectations were not met or if you have like genuine complaints beyond expectations. You don't have to like this movie, but maybe by the end of this, if you didn't like it, yeah, maybe by the end of this, you'll go, oh, but I see maybe ideologically what M. Night was trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
So, so we saw it in theaters. Then we bought the Blu-ray, which I thought was a combo pack that had all 3. And then when we got it, it was only the movie Glass.
But you saw the cover of it and it has all 3 characters. So surely you thought this is a combo pack.
I thought it was.
I don't blame you.
Because
it's misleading, but not even how else were they going to do the cover? Yeah. That's the cover.
So the movie's directed by M. Night Shyamalan. We have the music by Wes Dillon Thornton again. We have the cinematography by Mike Jolicki's again. It comes out January 18th, 2019. And once again, M. Night puts up his estate and he funds this movie himself for $20 million. If you remember last week, we talked about how he kind of got into a rut, M. Night, and he had to put it all out on. He had to gamble
everything
so that he could really feel that artistic integrity again.
Yep.
And make Split.
Yep.
So he doubles down.
He did something I don't know if Tim Burton will ever do.
Yes, that's such a good point, Jordan, because I feel like M. Night saw that he was becoming like the Tim Burton, where he's almost like a director for hire at this point, Tim Burton. And Disney gives him a movie to make. He makes it. It's okay to bad usually these days. There's exceptions in there, but there's an element of...
Or you give him something like Miss Peregrine's, which is like, oh, of course he would direct that. That makes so much sense. Truly, it does.
Yeah.
What an awful movie. I hated that movie. I also didn't like the book, though. But that movie sucked so bad. Asa Butterfield, big bummer.
Yeah.
The classic child star grows up kind of thing. And it, that sounds mean, but you know what I'm trying to get
happens.
at. Yeah.
But yeah, and we've talked about Burton a lot, especially in our Batman series.
Yeah, people are tired of Burton.
But it is like, I wish he would, because it does feel like a lot of times, like in Dumbo, it felt like he's just kind of on set directing. Like it doesn't feel like he's in it. You don't see his vision.
Like, can you direct this? But really, we just want to put your name on it because that brings people to the theaters.
That's how it feels.
Yeah.
And what we need is like M. Night, him to go, okay, I directed the last 3 movies like nobody likes, and I don't even like them that much. What do I need to do? So he bets it all. He makes Split, and then he goes, let's do it again. Glass. And then this year, he's going to save cinemas with his movie Old that's coming out later in the summer.
I hope so.
And everyone's going to have vaccines, and I predict that movie is going to do huge numbers. Even for pandemic times, I think that movie is going to gross a lot of money and be one of the top grossers of 2021.
I hope so. That would be great. It also makes sense that it would be him or I don't know, someone like Tarantino or something, because when theaters were kind of rebranded, as we talked about in Unbreakable, I think.
Yeah.
M. Night was among those people who made movies so much more profitable than they ever had been. So it makes sense that he's going to be the superhero to save theaters.
Well, and we've seen in the pandemic that kids' movies and thrillers have done really, really well.
Yes.
Like new releases, at least. And a thriller by an auteur, when it's past the point where Biden is saying most people will have vaccines, I think a lot of theaters will be open by, I think it comes out in July. I think that movie... you got teenagers, you have adults.
What's it
everyone's
rated?
going to go see it.
Is it PG-13?
I don't know if they've rated it yet, but much like
curious.
all of M. Night's movies, you remember them as R. You watch them and you think that's R because it just he has the power of suggestion.
Yeah.
But it's PG-13. So yes. So this movie though, Glass, makes $111 million domestically. And it makes 247, just below 247 worldwide. They spent $80 million on advertising, and the movie made, the profits of it were $68 million. So good job. That's a success, I think.
Yep.
And because of the deal he struck with Disney, because if you'll remember, Disney had the rights to the Unbreakable characters. So Disney...
And they let them use David Dunn for free. And if it does well, they get in on the money in the next
sequel.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, Universal distributed this movie in the U.S. and Disney distributed it worldwide. So that was kind of the deal. And let's see. Here's something I really like that M. Night said. This is a quote from a Rolling Stones article before the movie came out. And he said, quote, "I don't think you could have told me that making thrillers for your whole life wasn't a bad thing. At first, it was a sense of, hey, I can make anything. But that's hypocritical, because when I pick up an Agatha Christie novel in my library, I have a strong expectation. So I get it. When I became happy with the idea of making thrillers for the rest of my life, everything went right. So that's why, I mean, that's another reason why I cannot wait to see
Becoming content
Old.
with your niche.
Yeah. And knowing that that's not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So that's, I mean, there were so much notes on getting Unbreakable made and getting Split made. And much like almost every series we cover, at a certain point, when you have this much cachet, they're able to just make the movie. So he gets everyone together. I'm assuming that most of these actors were able to basically waive their fees to be in a movie that's only budgeted at $20 million.
Yeah, because you were saying that Bruce Willis has some crazy deal these days.
Yeah, so if I remember right, and if you look at Bruce Willis's IMDb, he has just an inordinate amount of movies. Usually
action movies
that are like Liam Neeson-y, but they feel like, my joke is, they feel like they made them to keep someone's offshore account afloat or something legally, or like a tax write-off or something. So they don't look good. They're not good. But I believe his deal is, if you were to make a movie, listener, and you said, I have $1 million, Bruce Willis will work one day for you. He doesn't care what it is. He'll just show up and work. If you have $2 million, he'll work 2 days, etc. So I'm assuming this movie took them more than 20 days to shoot with him on set. So I'm assuming he waived that fee.
Especially since M. Night is a big director for Bruce. He's in a couple of his movies. And he's in The Sixth Sense. That's a pretty big deal for his career. There are some directors he probably is just like, oh, I will do this thing for them at a certain point because it's almost like a respect thing. I mean, you just hope. This is just the hope. But like Tarantino, because he was in Tarantino movies earlier
Pulp Fiction.
On. Yeah.
I think that's the only movie.
You're right. But a big role in that movie. And then McTiernan?
Yeah, John McTiernan.
For Die Hard.
Without John McTiernan, Bruce Willis is still a comedian.
Which is so weird to me because I don't think of him that way. And I don't know him as that.
Yeah, I never experienced the comedy of Bruce. Just him being funny
in movies. Yeah,
but
the
not
action movies.
So I would think that those three guys, I mean, I believe McTiernan has passed away, but I believe the other two guys, is like, if they call on you, you do owe it to them. Because without Tarantino and M. Night and McTiernan, you are not viewed the way you are. And McTiernan made him an action hero. And then I really think Pulp Fiction and Sixth Sense showed like, oh, he can be like really dramatic and a very compelling actor, and he doesn't even have to say anything hardly, because he's not very talkative in those movies.
No.
So all that to say, as much as he kind of sleepwalks through movies these days, I like his performance in this movie.
I think it's a good subtle. It's not a lazy subtle.
No.
Like Unbreakable, we kind of talked about that. So with actors, Adam David Thompson plays Daryl, the health nut nurse. He is also in Vampires versus the Bronx, Godless, A Teacher, NCIS New Orleans, just like all the crime shows and just a lot of other shows. And then Luke Kirby plays Pierce, the other nurse. He is in...
I really liked him, even more than the health nut.
Yeah, he's great. Take This Waltz, Halloween, Resurrection, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Percy, Little Voice, and then just also a lot of shows. And then Sarah Paulson plays Dr. Ellie Staple. This is what kind of sucks about re-recording is we talked about Sarah Paulson for a very long time, which then got us into talking about TV shows for a very long time. And you can't recreate the conversation.
It was lightning in a bottle.
So all that being said, I'm sure in the future you'll get that conversation again. But Sarah Paulson is in 12 Years a Slave, Carol, Ratched, American Horror. She is Ryan Murphy's muse, and that's what started it all. But maybe next time we'll talk about it.
Yeah, fair enough.
But she is consistently incredible, and I cannot wait to see her in American Crime Story, the Lewinsky season.
Yeah, and who is she in that?
I believe, I should have looked it up because I had a chance to. I believe that she is like either the prosecutor or the defendant of whatever that is. You know, I don't know much about that story per se, like the legal, like the trial of it and stuff, but she's like the lawyer.
Okay.
You know?
Okay. So
I think
now we're back into Glass. Now, I can't do this because we already did this. I was going to ask you, how long do you think the original cut of this movie was? But I did that last time.
It was 3:40.
3:20.
3:20.
So M. Night makes the first cut of this movie. It's 3 hours and 20 minutes. And he said, I looked at it though, and he goes, because it was my first ever true sequel. That's what he considers it.
Right.
He goes, I knew all the characters, and I was just overwriting the movie.
Yeah.
That's what he said. So he had to shave off a lot of stuff. And what's cool is in all the Blu-rays, there's all these deleted scenes, and you can watch them with an intro by M. Night. And in the intros, he just talks about how when you are making a thriller, the guy just understands the genre, and he understands who he is now, I think even more, to where, you know, there's scenes in the deleted scenes that are like 7 or 8 seconds long, and he just goes, it just bogs the movie down.
Yeah.
And when you're not just talking about the plot or like moving character development, even these nice like slice of life moments, it just bogs the story down. And so you got to get rid of it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like Unbreakable has a lot of those moments, slice of life kind of moments, and it totally works in that movie. Yeah. That being said, there is deleted scenes even from that movie used in this movie. So he even had more he would originally liked to explore in that movie, and it's cool that he gets to repurpose it for this. But this is still, it's not as dramatic as Unbreakable. It is definitely more just thriller.
Yeah.
Because you have the Kevin character. So it has to be. And we don't know what Glass, their fate is.
Mr. Glass is like, oh man.
There's a lot of thriller. It's psychological thriller.
It's so cool because you have these 3 characters, and even though Elijah Price, Mr. Glass, in Unbreakable is a main character, like I feel like this movie more so than Unbreakable is truly about Mr. Glass.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, that's just so cool that they've each been about a different character instead of like, here's Spider-Man 1, here's Spider-Man 2, and here's Spider-Man 3, and they're all about Spider-Man, which I love. But even the notion of a superhero series, M. Night subverts. Yeah. Because, I mean, again, David Dunn just drowns in a pool in this movie, a puddle of water. Yep. I mean, it's insane.
And going into this, you know, because it all takes place after Unbreakable, like you said earlier, like this movie starts and you're like, okay, he's really cleaning up crime. Yeah. And he kind of is. Like he's doing the best he can, but the movie is so grounded in reality. It's not what you think it would be for a comic book.
Hey, it's Micah cutting in to tell you that on April 30th, I am coming out with a new music release. It's new-ish. I'm re-releasing Adam, Eve, Abel, and Cain into one release called The First Family. The reason I'm doing this is because I recorded new tracks and I got new mixes for Adam, Eve, and Abel, and so I thought I'd put it all together. I'm celebrating it by doing a release show on YouTube on the same day. That's on my YouTube channel, and that is going to premiere at 7 p.m. So April 30th, get on it, head over to whatever service you use, listen to The First Family, send me texts, send me emails, Instagram, whatever, let me know what you think, and then go to my show that's premiering on YouTube at 7 p.m., and then also after that, there is going to be an 8 p.m. After show for patrons only where they can request any of my songs to play, and I will play them. I probably can't pull off Roy G. Biv, though, if you're thinking of that one. So join in the fun. Now back to whatever movie we're covering.
So the movie starts right with the video with the kids. Is that how it starts?
No, the first shot, the first scene we meet Kevin.
That's
and
right.
And he's with the cheerleaders.
That's right. So Kevin has kidnapped like 4 cheerleaders, and he's in a warehouse, new location, and it's like kind of picking up where we left off with that character.
Yeah, and it's only 3 weeks after Split.
Yes, we learned that in a little bit. Well, very soon after that. Yeah, so I really like that it takes place so quickly afterward, because I feel like if it took place like a year afterward, there would be so much for, like, M. Night wouldn't be able to have the self-control to, like, not tell you everything that's happened.
Well, and something that's smart is, I think if it'd been a year, so we already have 2 characters that we don't know what they've been up to for the past 19 years, and they're main characters, David Dunn and Mr. Glass. If you make this a year after Split, you have to also catch up what has been going on with the Horde.
Yes.
And Kevin.
Yes.
So it's smart. It's a smart just script move to just go, this is only 3 weeks after that movie. So you don't have, like, we do see, though, that it looks like there's been some killings since the zoo.
Another one. So, like, we have the zoo one. Okay, so later on, well, okay. So then let's get to that when we get to it. So that is how it starts. But then it cuts to a guy walking down the street with groceries, and this kid does, like, this Superman punch. And his friend is filming it, and they think they're so cool, but they're just a bunch of scumbags who would just hurt people to get views on the internet. Which I do think... Originally, you asked me, what do you like? What do you think that just means about, like, a commentary on superheroes and social media, and just all that stuff, which is very fascinating. Like, so he's doing this Superman punch to hurt a person. Yeah, just kind of interesting, and I didn't think about it in the way that you had asked, and I still haven't. But it is really interesting. So, David finds the kids because they're uploading this stuff, and it's just like they think they're invincible, but they're not unbreakable. So David finds them and beats them up. He, as a vigilante does, he delivers justice swiftly and hard to these kids. It
is that is a cool scene. They are keeping. Well, the action in this movie is so cool.
It really is.
And just to have him come in and be this kind of but cloaked figure who turns off the lights when the kids are there, and then he just, like, throws them against the wall. But it's all the action in this movie it's so cool because it feels like a low budget movie who has to work around things, but then it also plays into how M. Night likes to suggest things rather than show them, which we'll get into more on the final battle, because it's just, I love how they filmed that whole sequence. Yeah. It's so cool. But
I something I like that they think that they tackle well in this movie too is, so he is, for the past 19 years, has been a vigilante. Yeah. And has been cleaning up petty crime. So it's just the scumbags like this, robberies. You find out that his son is like his oracle, or he's the guy in the chair. Yeah. So he's behind the computer, surveying basically people on the internet who were doing really bad things to people, like the kids on doing YouTube videos that hurt people. Yeah. And his dad goes and cleans it up. But with something I think they do well later on when we meet Sarah Paulson, she does say, like, I think she says this to his son, to Joseph, your dad is hurting people who did not get their day in court. And that is what that's how it should be. So it's like he's hurting people. He's meeting violence with violence, like he's hurting people without them even getting a chance to plead their case, which is just how it's set up. Well, which I think is very interesting. And that's what a lot of comic books talk about. Yeah. In more fun ways. Like Spider-Man's always trying to be discovered and taken down. Batman's also, like, people aren't sure about him. He only does it under the cover of darkness. That seems very wrong to people, Yeah,
so this has been something I've been thinking about a lot. Because I've been reading a ton of Spider-Man comics. I've been watching, like, the Batman animated series. And those 2 characters are very much wanted by the police. Although Batman does work in conjunction with the police.
Eventually, yeah.
But it's mostly like Commissioner Gordon just wants his help, but he's not supposed to be. Yes. When
he puts up the bat signal, no one else sees it. It's just Gordon and Batman.
But there's something about... I haven't quite cracked it yet. Yeah. So if anyone has any thoughts on this, please text me, email me, Instagram me, whatever, because I'd be interested to discuss this. when you put heroes in the real world, there are a lot of real world problems.
Yeah.
Like due process.
Yeah.
And maybe even, well, maybe this hero's like targeting a certain area, just as police tend to, over police areas of color.
Yeah.
Areas where there are people of color.
Yeah,
rather.
yeah.
So, it brings, sometimes I think when hero movies and comics, sometimes when they get like so grounded in reality, it to me almost makes it more unrealistic because you begin asking those types of questions.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And it's like, what is, and then all of a sudden you don't like Spider-Man or you don't like Batman because you're like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
And so that's part of why I think that's like a subconscious reason why sometimes when they come out with these like dark and gritty takes on heroes, I'm a little less interested.
Yeah.
Because it feels even less realistic to me.
Yeah.
And what I like about this is they are asking those questions, but these are heroes that they've made up in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that plays a lot better than being like, what would happen if Spider-Man was actually in our world right now?
Mm-hmm.
Because when I read Spider-Man, there are those real-world elements, but then you have like J. Jonah Jameson, who's insane and funny and cartoony, and you have these villains that are like way over the top.
Even in Batman, yeah.
And Batman, you have like Mr. Freeze and stuff. Like those guys could not exist in our world. And sometimes when you ground everything so realistically, it's like, but now I'm wondering, actually, I think I'd want this person arrested.
Yeah.
But in a cartoon world, it's cool.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
No, yeah. It's really interesting. I think it also reminds me, funny enough, of the movie Super with Rainn Wilson, and also directed by James Gunn, because he becomes a vigilante, and that movie is really brutal, and I think it's a little bit for laughs, but it is kind of showing like, yeah, this guy just wants to be a superhero, and he's hurting someone with a wrench. He just straight up, like that one guy was mean to him in line. So he leaves and comes back and starts beating him up with a wrench, which is like, no, that's not right.
Yeah.
But of course, that movie is more comedic than this.
Well, and it's a new, like he made up.
He did.
Hero.
He is not a superhero. He just wants to be one.
So I think it plays a little better than taking like a character you've grown up with who's cartoony, and putting them in the real world.
Yeah, but since the beginning of this series, it has been in the real world. It's been
so
like real world implications.
It just plays better for me personally.
Yeah. So David is cleaning up petty crime in his area, and you do see when he's talking to his son that the police do want to know who he is, because his son warns him that police are really aggressively looking for you. And they also have newspaper articles showing like a new picture of the overseer, and like just people, message boards are trying to figure out who this person is. Yeah. It's great. It's just awesome. And it, like, we're talking about it a lot. The movie does not get hung up on it. It's it's fun conversation, I think.
But there's a lot of subtext in the first.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, every like scene of this movie, it's like we could talk about it for a really long time.
It also makes me think of, so you have Kevin, or the Horde. So in Split, he had a motive for why he kidnapped the two girls. Anya wasn't supposed to be there, but she ended up being there. Yeah. He had a motive to want to hurt them because they did something bad to him, and he stalked them and kidnapped them. And then we do see that he probably he did kill the other girls. Yeah. And it makes me wonder, like, what did they do to him? And then now we have these cheerleaders, and we only know it's been 3 weeks. So now I'm getting, it makes me think, his whole motive is like they're impure, and they need to be, like, they're food for the Horde. Yeah. That's the base level thing. But, like, he is a serial killer. And a lot of the time, serial killers, they do escalate the more crimes they commit. And a lot of it is because they are getting away with it. And they think that it's almost like they think that they're gods. That's why a lot of them represent themselves in court. But
and he literally does think he is a god / evangelist.
Well, he's an evangelist. Yes, I love that whole thing. And even that he's the next step in evolution. Yeah.
And I think the implication too is over the course of since in Split he had not become the Beast ever, right? Yeah. Now it's like his alter ego. He can change in and out of it, so it's becoming more aggressive and something he has to feed more.
I definitely. So I think it's like when you see these girls who are cheerleaders, I wonder if it's like he saw cheerleaders and he assumed that they were impure.
Yeah.
And kidnapped them.
Yeah.
And is just going to like kill them faster than he has the last 2 times. You know, it's just really fascinating.
Yeah. And a little side note, just for fun, back to the point about superheroes in the real world. Watchmen, the Alan Moore series, something that's really cool about that is all those characters are kind of based on old, out-of-date comic book characters that they weren't using anymore. So the reflection of like the nostalgia of superheroes versus the reality plays even better than if he said like, let's make Watchmen, but with Superman, Batman, and because it just wouldn't have worked as well.
Yeah.
So
Watchmen is like the best ever.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like a graphic novel, it's probably the best one.
Oh yeah, I think so. For someone who hasn't read many, but that's like the best one. And then to have a show come out where they have even another thing to say. I know it's not Alan Moore, but like someone had something else to say that could be used in this world, and it was amazing. Very cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
So, M. Night shows up in this movie. And he is the same character that he was in Unbreakable, and he's the same character that he was in Split, and he shows up to the security place, and he's representing the security at the
building where Fletcher, the psychiatrist, lived.
Yeah, and he even mentions that someone died there recently.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, so he's talking about Fletcher.
Okay.
Not died there, but someone died in his building. So he's upping security.
Yeah.
Kind of cool. And then he says that... He looks at David Dunn and he's like, hey, you look familiar. And then he goes, I used to hang out at the...
at that stadium with a lot of shady guys, but I turned it around with some positive thinking. Okay.
Yeah, and that's when M. Night's at his worst, I think, like writing-wise, when he wants to, like...
Yes, but here's the thing. For it being, we just were talking about how grounded the series is.
Yeah.
But he is not afraid to put in the cheesy moments, and I love it. Especially in this movie.
I think
there
it's endearing.
Some good cheesy moments, cheesy lines, and I think it's awesome. So totally, it's not great. I mean, it's just as bad as his cameo in Split.
Yeah.
But it's fine. I wouldn't cut it.
It's
of all the things
cute,
he needed to cut,
think.
he didn't cut himself.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
What so of his movies we've seen, what's your favorite of his cameos?
I don't remember all of them.
Oh, okay.
He was good in Signs, actually.
I was going to say, that one's my favorite.
Yeah,
he's really good
probably
in
the best in Signs.
Okay. So, but one thing happens in this movie that when we were sitting in the theaters, it was like Jordan and I like shot and looked at each other like, are you serious?
I know. Yeah.
And it's when we go to the Dunn security and we see David Dunn's son. I just assumed it's a new movie. I haven't heard of this kid in a long time. They're
going to recast
him, and it's going to be like someone I don't know or a famous person. And then it is the kid from Unbreakable.
Which is like, oh yeah, why wouldn't they get him? And then
especially because he's been an actor this whole time.
When we covered Unbreakable, he's been doing stuff the whole time. Just stuff that we haven't seen.
It's just great. Like, that can't be overstated how insane that is.
Yeah. And he adds to the cheesiness in a very fun way.
Yeah.
Very corny for some of the stuff that he does. However, he is also really good. Especially when it comes to the emotional moments later on in the movie. He nails it.
I feel like each time I watch the movie, I'm like, he's really good. And then the next time I'm like, he's not that good, but I like that he's in it. And then I watch it again and I go, he's really
he's
it's
really
kind of
good.
a weird performance.
Yeah.
I don't know. It sort of feels like he's in a CW show.
Well,
but it works.
Oh, I think that's just because he's cute and young.
Yeah.
But
what?
But what was I gonna say though? Oh, he feels like the same character as the kid.
He does.
He just still is just so like, my dad is a superhero and I get to help him.
Yeah.
That it's just a dream come true for him, and that's how he acts, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
And what makes that like what really challenges that kind of performance is when his dad is committed to a psychiatric hospital because someone is saying that he's crazy for believing he's a superhero.
Yeah.
And he's like, he's just so confused because it's like, no, you don't understand. He is a superhero. It's just great. It's good.
It's awesome. And so we see that David Dunn like lives alone and his wife passed away, which is a nice development. I'm glad they didn't, because actually when we rewatched Unbreakable, I was like, oh yeah, and they get a divorce. That's kind of weird because they do fix things here, and that seems a little kind of a bummer. But having her die, I feel like is better.
Oh yeah, it's
Story-wise.
it's so lame in movies when someone tries the whole movie. Well, I guess I'll speak more maybe to more romantic, dramatic movies. But the whole movie is about the two people ending up together, and they do. And no one knew the movie was going to be successful, but it was. So they make a sequel.
Yeah,
and they couldn't afford the same people or the same person in the next movie, or it's not as interesting.
Yeah.
So that person either needs to die or get a divorce, and it's like, well, wait, that was your true love.
Yeah.
It always sucks.
And it works in this movie, I think, mostly because it's not that distracting because there are so many characters.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of like, even if she was in it, what would she have, like 2 lines?
Exactly. So, yeah.
It is a shame because I love Robin Wright, and I would have loved to have seen her in it, but at the same time, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So then, there's also a scene, and I cannot stress it enough. There are 2 scenes in this movie that are unused deleted scenes from Unbreakable.
Mm-hmm.
You can watch the Unbreakable DVD that came out before Glass came out, and you watch these scenes in their entirety. They've been edited a little bit differently now. But it's insane to me. That is like, that is so cool. That's as cool as like Captain America getting the hammer at the end of Endgame.
Oh, yeah.
We're just like, no way.
Wait. I remember the one with his kid. What's the other one?
It's when Mr. Glass, as a kid, goes to the carousel, the fairgrounds.
That's from Unbreakable?
They shot that for Unbreakable.
Oh, I thought that they shot that for this movie.
No.
I didn't know that was...
No.
That scene looks amazing.
And here's what's crazy. So that scene, and it makes so much sense, on the commentary, M. Night, in the Unbreakable DVD, he's like, this scene I really, really loved, but there were too many edits in it. And he said the whole movie is like all these one shots and like it really disrupted the flow.
Yeah.
But what's crazy is in Glass, so if you watch the full deleted scene, it's like 3 or 4 minutes long. Yeah. It's really long. But in Glass, the movie, it's like 30 seconds to a minute. So they cut out even the full deleted scene is like way longer. So it's just really interesting.
Oh, that's wild.
But it totally works in this movie because movie, though it is still doing nice long shots, it's splitting the difference between how flashy Split was and how long and methodical Unbreakable was.
Yeah.
So it makes
cool.
so much sense that it worked in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they shot that in 1999.
Very cool.
They shot it 20 years prior.
Just awesome.
And he also talked about how it was a bummer to cut too because it was their biggest scene in Unbreakable because there were so many extras and stuff.
Definitely.
And they spent like 2 days shooting that scene, and then to cut the entire scene is like, but we gotta cut it. That's such a bummer.
That's how
but
movies
he gets to
go.
Use it.
Yeah.
Okay. So then our main character, David Dunn, the overseer, as the internet has dubbed him, not Twinkle Toes or something. What was his joke
it's
name?
better than Twinkle, something weird like that.
Then he's going on walks where he just walks by people and they touch him and he can have visions of the person to see if they're maybe this killer, this horde character. And he walks around this brick district in New Jersey.
Really?
Philadelphia.
Yeah,
Philadelphia.
okay.
That's where it takes place.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know why, but the East Coast I get so confused
it's
sometimes.
It's an M. Night movie, Micah. Why would it ever be shot anywhere else?
I think because we're watching Sopranos, I'm like, oh, it's on the East Coast. They're all in New Jersey.
Oh, okay. That's weird. So, yeah, he's touching people. That sounds weird. He's in the area sniffing crime like McGruff the crime dog. And
I'm McGruff.
He is, he talks to his son like via on the phone with him, I guess.
Yeah.
And he's not getting anyone, so he's gonna head back.
Yeah.
Right before he does, though, Kevin or the Horde, Hedwig, I think is who it is at that moment, walks by him and bumps into him, and David sees the cheerleaders in the warehouse.
Yeah.
He sees the vision, and great acting there. So he goes to the warehouse. Meanwhile, Hedwig continues to go like underground to...
Oh, that scene's cool. Into a nice yellow hallway.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So I looked up the why yellow for him. Well, I didn't look it up. I found why it was yellow for him, and it's that color is often associated with like religion, like Buddhism or Hinduism. So kind of a religious kind of color, fervor, religious, evangelistic, which is who he claims to be, is the one who represents the broken and the fallen.
Yeah.
Awesome. So he goes underground where some homeless people are, and he becomes the horde in front of them, and they ask him who he is, and he says, "I'm you." So I'm assuming he just did that as like, that God complex.
Yeah.
To transform in front of who he probably believes are his followers.
Disciples.
Yeah.
And then, by the way, James McAvoy has #1 billing in this movie.
Very cool.
Earns it, but that's crazy that he beat out Willis.
And Jackson.
Yeah. I mean, I would have probably given it to him because Jackson is the and guy.
Yeah.
He's always
the and guy.
He's the and or the with. And we love that. Although I am still surprised that he's not in the billing outside of that. But, whatever. I think he likes being and.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes. So then there is a fight between the overseer and the horde, and it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool.
The cheerleaders make it out.
And one of the things I really, really loved about the McAvoy fighting is it's very like trapped animal in a room. They do a really good job. Like there's that scene where David pushes him up against the pillar and he kicks off the pillar. And all of his movements are just very, like, I could see Marvel shooting this movie and you would not distinguish his fighting style from any other villain.
Yeah.
But cool, he has a distinct fighting style.
Yeah, and what's cool too, so later on in the movie, Sarah Paulson's trying to get them to believe that they're not super.
Yeah.
And I don't think as a viewer at any point you're like, maybe she's right.
Well, we'll get to that when
sure,
we get there.
Sure.
Because I have a couple thoughts.
Because I've seen it before when we were watching this scene of the movie and seeing them actually they run into a pillar and it crumbles. A human body wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Just cool. Kind of there is evidence, but whatever.
Well, my theory is this is all in Haley Joel Osment's head.
Oh.
From the kid from Sixth Sense.
Yeah. No, yeah.
So they're fighting, and then they fall out a window. You mentioned the cheerleaders are safe.
Mm.
Cool that he just barely has to exert any energy to pry off with the crowbar the bar that they're connected to.
Yeah, and later on when I think Sarah Paulson's talking to David about his vigilantism and how it's not great, she mentions how, I think he even said something like the girls got away or they're safe, and she's like, yeah, with one of them broke an arm and ribs. Yeah. And it's like, well, they would have been eaten alive. Yeah,
because the beast throws a door at them. So
yeah, well, no, I know how that happens, but if David wasn't there,
right,
they would have died. It's just interesting, but she's just being manipulative.
Yeah. So they fall out this window and they're fighting and the rain is coming down. So as a viewer, you're like,
David
he could be in trouble.
Compromised.
But then all these lights flash and they flash and they make the horde change personalities every time they flash. Mm-hmm. And he's weak and he's going, what do we do? What do we do? What did we do? I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And then, David's standing there, and there's all these police, and they've been captured.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, my first viewing, I'm like, what is this movie doing? Because that's just an insane way to start the movie.
I know.
And I mean, at the same time, you had seen in the previews that they were all in one area together, sitting down in a psychiatric
you
type
mean in the
thing.
Trailer?
The trailer, yeah, for the movie.
Yeah.
But still, it was okay. I guess
we're
getting
what's
there.
Going on?
And then now we're going to spend the rest of the movie at this mental institution.
Mm-hmm.
That alone, insane for a superhero movie.
Mm-hmm.
And we get introduced to Sarah Paulson. Now, when you watched the movie for the first time, did you have an inkling that she was a bad guy?
I wasn't. I was didn't feel like I could trust her most of the time, just because, and not even like I thought that she had ulterior motives, just like that she misunderstood almost more.
Yeah.
She is like she's like, she only has 3 days to do what she needs to do with them, which means that this isn't like, she doesn't work at this hospital.
Right.
So it's like, but like she is a special doctor, you know, so she came in for this special purpose. And it is a little funny that it's like, she has 3 days.
Yeah.
Like that's also kind of weird, but it's a movie. So maybe it's not.
Yeah.
But I also, it was just, I just don't know if I could quite trust her, but it's like, but she's being so professional. I don't know.
I think maybe I'm just too much of a trusting viewer or something, or maybe it's me just not wanting to know what happens in a movie and be surprised, because the whole time I'm like, oh, interesting. I think I thought they were going to go more with, like, at some point she believes and then she helps David.
Oh, interesting.
You know, like she sees what's going on.
Okay.
And when she reaches for him in the puddle, I did not expect what happened, but I want to save that.
Yeah. I think, so they are at the psychiatric hospital, and they're all in their own rooms. David is in a room that's rigged with a bunch of hoses, which is fun. Like, you know, it's just so fascinating because it's like she's trying to prove to him that he is not super. Yeah, why does she put all this water? But it's like, but if he was crazy, he would believe that the water. So it's like you do have them there.
Movie so
and
much.
Then same with with Kevin, like he does experience a mental disability, like he truly does.
Yeah.
So like he has a room where there's those lights. So if he gets to a certain part of the room, it will flash and he will snap out of whatever person he is to another person.
Yeah.
Whatever. So.
And we still, we're like a half hour into the movie. We have not seen hide nor hair of Mr. Glass yet. Which does make for a good and performance, frankly. But still, I think he's a main player. So what's cool about this next kind of sequence is she's kind of explaining, you know, what you guys have been doing is wrong, both of you, and we're seeing the limitations of the rooms and how they really are secured in those rooms. Because we've seen how insane these characters are in their strength. And me as a viewer, I'm like, I buy it. Like, David can't get out of here, and Kevin can't get out of here. So they're stuck in there, and they're having some nice monologues. We're meeting the staff, who are kind of an interesting collection of characters.
Yep.
And then now, Anya Taylor-Joy is walking around a school. She just got back from an art class via the deleted scenes. And
okay.
and she gets called into the principal's office, and they said, they found the guy that...
They found Kevin.
And we find out she's going to the same high school as Joseph, who went to the same high school as David.
You also find out that she is with a foster family now. So things are looking good for her.
Yeah.
She's out of her bad situation. But when she is told this, she... you know, it's crazy because this only happened 3 weeks ago. What happened to her?
This would be
it's still traumatic to her, but because she is an empath... her response is she wants to see him. Yeah.
And I think that would be my only complaint with the movie. And it's not something I can't overlook, that it's like, I don't know that you would develop your character and your trauma and stuff in 3 weeks. That's maybe it. Like, that was just such a traumatic event.
Because to me, she is an empath on a level that's not supernatural, but almost. Like, that's how charismatic of a person she is.
I would argue it is supernatural.
Yeah. Do you think they make that pretty clear?
I think she is a superhero.
Yeah.
In the movie. I think the movie posits that.
I think it does too.
Because when she visits Kevin, she touches him, and the camera really focuses on her touching him, and he completely calms down. And she's able to like capture his attention and empathize with him and sympathize with him. And I think she has like what's a mantis in Guardians Volume 2, where she can touch people and change their emotions.
Yeah.
I think...
And feel their emotions.
Like, if he were to make another movie and he made it about her and she could change people's emotions and control their emotions, stuff like that, I would rewatch this and be like, oh yeah, he laid it all out on the table.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about this movie.
But I think because of that is why I don't care about how short of a time it's been.
I think that's a great point. I think you kind of argued me out of that, and now I don't have to have that complaint.
You're welcome.
Yes, now it's even better. So then we get his son tries to visit. I'm just hitting those
he
side
does
characters.
visit, and he has all these talking points.
Which is pretty funny.
Very funny. He's just trying to make up stories to try to get his
Jordan,
dad out.
You have to admit it's funny.
It's funny. So, and you know, Sarah Paulson, Dr. Ellie Staple, she's not buying it for a second. And she is even trying to convince his son, like, it's delusion. It's like the greatest delusion of grandeur, or a specific kind is what she calls it. And she's even trying to get his son to believe it. Mm-hmm. Of course.
Yeah.
And he can't, he can't.
Yeah.
He is so bewildered by this whole thing. And I think he does such a wonderful job.
Did you catch that when he walks out of the
hospital?
This is so cool. He's hearkening back to the first shot we ever see him in the series. Because he's
upside down?
He's upside down and his world is not right.
Oh my gosh. Because in the beginning of Unbreakable, he's upside down and he turns right, kind of like what they do with Glass.
Yeah.
And it's like throughout that movie, he kind of figures his own life calling out with his dad. And then in this movie, they completely destroy it.
So the camera follows him and makes him go upside down again because his world has been turned upside down.
He's done it again.
It's a Glasterpiece, folks.
That's cool.
How could you not love this movie?
So shortly after that, Anya shows up, right? Or Casey shows up to also try to see Kevin.
Yeah, and that's the empath scene we were just talking about. But if you want to include more, you are allowed.
Staple does not want her to. Staple's like, why would you want to? This man kidnapped you and was going to murder you. But she also understands, like, she might be able to get something out of him.
Yeah.
So she does allow her to see him. And like you said, she touches him and Kevin is brought forth. Just every time Kevin is brought forth, you just want to cry. It's so amazing.
Yeah. And she says that her experience with him gave her the courage to
tell someone about her uncle.
And he's in jail now.
Yeah.
Which is nice because remember we talked about in the last episode that if there's not another movie after Split, you can argue either way on what she did in that situation.
Oh, for me, I'm like, you have to believe that she told someone.
Well, that's what I would want to believe, but it's not that a movie needs to hold your hand, but I'm glad that they say, like, I need that. I need that. So
great. What is cool in this movie too, we get a lot of different characters from James McAvoy that we didn't see in the last movie. A lot of that is because of the flashing lights. It's just like calling forth characters who I think have been suppressed because of the Horde.
Yeah. Is it Irish twins?
You have Irish twins. Yeah. You have someone who speaks Spanish. You have some Southern guy. Anyway, and a lot of some of them come forth and are like, I'm not for this Horde thing. Yeah. Like, I don't support this, but they're very quickly suppressed by Dennis or Patricia or someone else.
It's very, the scenes where he's just changing back and forth, it's like James McAvoy's just showing off at this point. Like, how can you even do this?
It's very cool.
Also, just more toward the end of the movie, as he's changing in and out of different personalities and it's close-ups, it's like, how do you do that? I don't get that.
I don't know either, man.
It's a great performance.
I know.
So now let's talk about Mrs. Price, because she's back. Mm-hmm. Folks, she's back. And
Elijah's
now
mom.
She's the age, she's the age that she was at the end of Unbreakable that they aged her up to. And it's the same actress. What?
And she is, again, I will remind people, younger than Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
Just crazy.
She's so good.
She's so good. So
good.
Naturally, she comes to the hospital.
Charlene Woodard, right?
Something, I think that's,
I believe that's her name.
I just want to look it up to confirm. Yep, Charlene Woodard. So she comes. Of course, she's been coming here for years because her son has been here ever since the end of Unbreakable. Well, more or less, you know? Yeah. So, and she's like, try to call every week. Of course, sometimes I don't get there. But she is now, this is the first time she's meeting Staple. So it's like, a special doctor is here to come look at her son's special case. To which she gives Staple a lot of information about her son. Mm-hmm. About how one time he even looked at a blueprint of, I think, the building.
Like electrical
Yeah,
Like
and
a technician, like an electrician left out an electrical readout of the building.
blueprint, and he was able to like almost
Knock out the
escape,
power.
just knock out the power, do whatever. Like he's just so smart. So to which Staple's just learning more information about him on how to keep him here and manipulate him and all this stuff. Really, really great scene, and it's the same part of the movie. She goes to talk to her son.
Yeah, but before that, we do find out, like, officially that Sarah Paulson is there because she is someone who tours around, and there's more and more people these days, which I think is a commentary on the movie franchises and stuff. There's more and more people these days that believe they're superheroes. And so I come to, like, get rid of that delusion.
To address it, yeah.
Like, it's enough of a problem that the medical community's like, this is an issue. This is like an offshoot that we're going to have to add to the next book edition of book stuff.
Yeah, okay.
Medical book stuff, whatever.
Medical journals, just say that.
That's it. So that's cool. And that feels like a kind of a commentary on the times and the studio system and stuff. So you're going, interesting, Shyamalan. You're bringing out a little bit more. Okay, give me some more. Then she goes into the room with...
Well, what does she talk to him about? Do you remember?
Well, I think she just kind of says that she's... Like you were never... Like, you were always too smart for this world. And... I still love... It's basically just, I still love you, and I know you're going to be okay. It's motherly, and she has... When we get to the end of the movie, come on. Forget about it. So then we have the Unbreakable scene.
The flashback to his son?
Yeah, which we talked about.
Oh, I love that scene. Little Joseph he says, I'm not scared anymore, Dad. Or is that what he says? I'm not scared anymore?
Yeah.
And I think he's like, just because I know.
And he's upside down in that scene too, which is kind of interesting. He goes, I know your secret identity or something, or your alter ego or whatever.
Yeah. It's just it's so beautiful because all of Unbreakable, you saw that his family could never connect with him. And in that movie, his son was finally was able to connect with him. He was finally able to connect with his son because he allowed him inside, to know who he was. Makes me want to cry just thinking about it.
Then, also, I just want to point out that Sam Jackson is doing this eye twitch thing, and he's completely catatonic.
He's heavily sedated because he has caused so much trouble at this hospital.
And we just neglect that this man who is in so many movies is not capable of turning in a bad performance. Even if the movie's bad, he's still so good. He is a national treasure.
Yeah.
We love Samuel Jackson,
I would say.
And he is welcome on the podcast anytime. But, okay, so Glass, we see him outside of his room. And his door's wide open.
And this is after Ellie, I think, meets with him and tells him that she's installed 100 new cameras.
Yeah.
She's also told David that there's a 15,000 gallon water. It's I don't know. Water tank that is rigged to shoot him with water. You see all these dudes putting cameras around that are new, and then soon after that, Elijah gets out of his room.
And the two. What are those people, like caregivers? Nurses. My goodness. They see him and they're kind of like, how'd you get out of here? But he's just sitting there catatonic, and they just put him in because they don't want to get in trouble. Works for me. And it's just kind of creepy because right then and there, you're already suspicious. Of course, we've seen trailers where he's talking and stuff like that, but you're still like, what is he doing? And then when you see that, you go, okay, here we go. This is when the ride begins.
Do you think it's interesting that he's in a wheelchair the whole movie?
Well, he was in a wheelchair in Glass
the whole time.
I mean, Unbreakable once he falls down the stairs.
Yeah. So you think since then he's never got out of a wheelchair?
I guess so. Yeah.
I don't know. It's great. It's just interesting because, as we know, his weakness is he has brittle bones.
Yeah. His power is his brain. Yeah. I mean, do you think it's interesting that he's in a wheelchair?
I think it accentuates his power, which is his brain, because he cannot do anything physically.
Well, it's kind of like a Professor X kind of thing from X-Men.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, yeah. I just think it's great. Great choice.
Yeah. Let's see. She says his name, and we get the Jaws shot. Yeah, we get another Jaws shot in this movie.
Well, Staple talks to James McAvoy, and he's kind of getting crazy.
I skipped something though.
But that's when she says Kevin's name. And
yeah, that's when we go to the pink room. I forgot to.
Yes,
that's
yes.
the next scene in this movie. So we go to this room and it's all pink. That's Ellie's color. It looks awesome. Mm-hmm. You can see set photos. That's really looks like that. Mm. And we have David on the right. He's in green. We have Kevin in the middle. He's in yellow. And then they wheel in Mr. Glass, and
he's in purple.
Bruce Willis, yes, he's in purple, and Bruce Willis's reaction is good. Mm-hmm. He's like, "What is he doing here?
This guy's killed a ton of people."
And he's basically saying, like, we might be crazy, but he's a psycho. Like, get this guy out of here.
Yeah.
And they get in there, and then this is when Sarah Paulson presents the case that they are not superheroes,
and she goes to each person individually to do it. And yes. I think she starts with. Did she start with David?
Yeah.
So she starts with David, and like we said the whole time, she's just trying to convince him of things. They did an MRI, and she shows them there's this cloud in your prefrontal cortex that could have occurred during the train accident. Mm-hmm. And she believes that is like when he started
having the delusion.
I think it's cool that they don't show us, like, she's just pointing at this thing with a ton of brains on it. I never see a shadow on a prefrontal cortex.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Like, if they really were trying to convince us, they would have done something. Doesn't matter. So, and then she's also talking to him about, like, how do you know someone's bad? And I just love it. He's like, it's not easy to explain. It sounds crazy when I explain it.
Yeah.
But he explains it. He touches someone and he has a feeling. And she starts talking about illusionists. Like, the best illusionists of the world can predict anything about anyone based on the most minute social cues. And she's like, I think you are an extraordinary... I don't think illusionist is the word she used. Mentalist. Yeah. You're like the most extraordinary kind of mentalist, and your delusion has caused you to think that makes you super.
Now, I want to explain what I'm thinking the first time I watched the movie.
Okay.
I'm watching it, and maybe I'm naive again, but I'm sitting there and I'm starting to think about the things in Unbreakable and Split, and I'm going... And I'm kind of like, what are you doing, M. Night? Like, is the twist of this movie that those movies were all a farce?
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. And I'm going, that doesn't make sense. Maybe it does? And then she's explaining to Kevin, like, oh, those bars with a little pressure, I was able to move them. It was hard, but I was able to do it. And I'm going, is this the M. Night Sixth Sense thing? And we're going to find out, like, Unbreakable, and I think I remember even thinking, like, that, like, ruins Unbreakable if he's not unbreakable.
Yeah.
So I was kind of buying it.
I didn't want to.
I didn't want to, but I was like, okay.
So when she's talking to David, she goes through a whole thing, and I like that he's like, you were talking about a chain of events that never happened, a chain of thoughts that never occurred in my brain. So David is pretty unmovable. Yeah. Like, he's pretty much still grounded. She probably is planting a little bit of she does plant a seed for him. And then she talks to Kevin, or I think she's talking to Dennis. And just like the bar thing, like you said.
Yeah.
And you can see, what does she say exactly that gets him to, like, lose expression? Was it the bar?
Well, she says Kevin Wendell Crumb, and that's when we have I looked it up because I wanted to know for sure. It's called a dolly zoom / a vertigo shot / a Jaws shot. People call it all three of those things. And they zoom in, and that's when he loses expression, and he's kind of like realizing what's going on because he's Kevin again.
Okay. And Kevin really doesn't know anything because all of the personalities were created. Well, the mental disability he experiences is like his body protecting Kevin, his brain protecting Kevin.
Yeah.
From all of his trauma.
Yeah, and all that is wild, and I think as a viewer, the first time, I'm just thinking, like, I don't know if this makes sense, if this is the explanation for these movies. Like, I'm going to need more to really like what this movie's throwing down.
Yeah.
But that's not what he's doing. That's not what he's doing.
Yeah.
So then Anya Taylor-Joy goes to a comic book shop. So does Joseph.
Wait, we didn't talk about Glass.
Oh, yeah.
Because she goes to him, and when it's showing her, it's a Dutch angle, right?
Oh, yeah.
Which, isn't that often used to be like something is not right? Almost,
yeah, but we are seeing it from his perspective because his face is at that
However,
angle.
He's the smartest one.
Yeah.
So I just
He
feel
sees
like
her for what she is.
yeah,
Get out of here, Jordan.
Trying to
Get
convince
out!
him that, she's lying to him and manipulating all of them. And I can't remember exactly what she says. He doesn't respond anyway because he's pretending to be sedated. Or she says, like, I don't need to do an MRI on you
cool.
because there have been so many in the past because you've been here for so long.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
It's just too cool. It's too cool.
Yeah.
How can you not love it?
I know.
So, Anya starts like looking up stuff and she's seeing actual comic book panels that look like the Beast and are pulling apart iron bars. So she's starting to buy this whole comic book superhero thing.
Yep.
And Joseph is trying to, I love this. He goes to the same comic book shop in the first movie, and we're assuming it's
That's
the
where
same.
Anya goes to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And we're assuming it's the same owner from the first
looks like
movie.
the same guy.
And he goes there and he's looking in Heroes. He's just trying to find answers in comic books, and he's not finding them. Then he goes to the villain section and he grabs one.
Mind you, Heroes is in a neon green sign.
Yeah,
Villains is in a neon purple sign.
Yeah.
We don't even need to be subtle anymore.
No. So it's also just nice to watch a superhero movie that's really colorful.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So he grabs this one and it shows, some villain and it says, who are his parents? The secret revealed in this issue.
Yeah.
And then he's like, And he starts researching who is Kevin's dad.
Uh-huh.
And then he has a great reaction. And of course, we talked about it in our Split episode. Like, it's kind of obvious. But I didn't catch it.
Oh, I don't think it's obvious. Well, it's a great hindsight.
It's a great twist because I love the kind of twists that make you feel like an idiot.
Yeah. Well, what's so great is I didn't catch it until the last time we watched Split is they do say that his dad died on a train.
They do.
Because I didn't know that when I watched Glass. I didn't catch it.
And I think there were fan theories after Split that it was the same train.
And I didn't know I needed to.
Yeah.
So, but even when it came out, I feel like a lot of the times this twist is so huge for something that's such a big concept and movie that it's like, yeah, okay, of course. Yeah. But now it's like, no, of course.
Yeah.
It was his dad.
So he's researching stuff and he has kind of a big reaction at the computer, but you don't see what he's looking at. And you're like, oh no, what is it?
I know. This is so crazy.
When I was watching it the first time, I'm going, like, what could be? Because when a director shows you a shot like that, they want you to have that reaction. So I'm like, what could they reveal that is going to give me that reaction? And then later, Mr. Glass when he gets out of his room and he researches it, Jackson's performance on this is crazy.
Oh, it's incredible.
He drops the folder.
Yeah.
And it's like he's about to cry almost. He's like, I can't believe it. And again, I'm going, what could be big enough that I would have that reaction? To me, it's absolutely satisfying. It pays off in dividends.
So they're doing some comic book research. And then I think Casey, Joseph, and Miss Glass go to Staple, and they're all trying to be like, you're being like, what are you doing? Like, what is really going on here? And they're all using comic books as their resources. And Staple is like, do you hear yourself talking?
Yeah.
You were talking about fictional creations that like kids consume for children. This is like ridiculous. Like I'm about to commit you probably.
Yeah.
You're being so delusional. She's doing such a great job.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a really big moment in that scene that I can't remember, but anyway.
Yeah, so they're doing that, and then this is when we have the whole Glass sequence. This is when the movie, for me, I'm like, okay, now I'm like officially locked in, and I can trust the movie from here on out because you just don't know where it's headed. But this whole sequence, Mr. Glass, he's been like faking his pill eating. And he's not been catatonic. He's been faking it the whole time. And he gets out and he breaks the Beast out. It's this whole great sequence.
He talks about him. He says he's going to do it. Hold on.
Okay.
We're jumping to conclusions. He breaks out of his room at one point and does a lot of stuff that we don't really understand he's doing. That's when he sees something in Kevin's file that makes him go crazy, or the big reaction. Then he goes to Kevin's room and talks to Patricia. I think it's mostly Patricia he's talking to for a good couple minutes.
Yeah.
About like he admires him. He thinks that he's meant for big things. he thinks that this doctor is crazy, and
he says it looks like the bad guys are teaming up.
Yes,
come on.
And he talks about it is revealed earlier in the movie that there is this new skyscraper that's going to be the biggest building in Philadelphia. The opening day is that morning because it's the middle of the night, and
the Osaka Tower, I think.
Yeah, so it's like that's where the show in every comic book there's a showdown between villain and hero, and that's where it's going to happen. You need to demonstrate what you can do in front of a large audience.
That's what any villain has to do.
Yes, and to which Patricia / the Horde are like, absolutely, you're right. Yeah. Like that's where we will gain disciples.
Yeah.
So they create this plan. He's going to come back and break him out, and they're going to get out together. Glass also talks to David over an intercom, and David at this point has pretty much given up. He doesn't know what to think anymore, and he can't get out of the room.
Well, and Mr. Glass says over the speaker, she's like, I turn off the water, and the beast is going to head to this tower, and I'm going to blow up the tower.
Yeah.
And he goes, it'd take a real hero to stop us. And he's like, but I guess you don't believe you're a hero anymore. And a puny metal door is not going to stop someone with superhuman strength, but if you don't have any superhuman strength, I guess you're going to be stuck here.
Yeah.
And David's kind of questioning everything about his life.
Yeah.
And then he starts running at the door, the heroic moment.
And when he sees that he's made an imprint in the door, his reaction, it's
awesome.
like, oh my gosh, forget about it.
Now, there is a deleted scene in this that I think is really cool where as Glass and the Horde are breaking out of the mental institution, the Horde like walks into this hallway, and there are all these other people who are in the institution, and he walks by like he's blessing them.
Oh, interesting.
And it's a very creepy scene, and they're like worshiping him. They're like, oh, and stuff, and he's putting his hand on them and just like, and it's furthering that idea about like the God complex and all that stuff. That's cool. I get that it's not in the movie, but it was a really, sometimes you see a deleted scene and you're like, dang, that's cool. And that was one of them.
Yeah.
So then, are we good to take everyone outside?
David gets out of his room. The Horde Patricia and Glass go through the basement, specifically the basement. During all of this, Ellie makes it here, discovers that people... Oh, no, this is when she's talking to son, Casey, and mom. She gets a notification on her computer that says, Code 1, prisoners out.
Yeah.
Or not prisoners, patients out of their rooms. Emergencies going on. She then she goes to the cameras and she sees Daryl is dead in Mr. Glass's room because he killed him. He slit his throat. And then we also see later that the Horde killed the other nurse. So they've had several minutes to escape.
Yeah.
So it's full on panic mode. She calls out another code, like this is something bad's going on. And she's like, they went through the basement. That buys us time.
Yeah.
So now we're outside.
Yeah. And I will say the music in this is crazy. Mm-hmm. It's doing this ticking kind of thing. And the fact that Mr. Glass switched out the machine and stuff, and we see this whole...
And he's got the coolest outfit.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
So then they go outside, and then David breaks into the locker, and he puts on his outfit, and it flows in the wind like a cape. It's like a hero donning his cape. Awesome. Then we go outside. We're in the salon. Now, if you pause the movie, you're about an hour into a 2-hour movie, and it's like, of course. So this is one of my biggest things that I think take this from a really cool movie to a masterpiece and a subversive movie. So we have what we've been conditioned as the second act fight, and it's about to happen. And the hero's going to kind of lose, the bad guys are going to get away, and they're going to get to this tower that they keep talking about. And it's even at the right time in a movie when this would happen. That's how far M. Night goes with this thing. But guess what, folks? The next 40 minutes are the final battle, and they never get to the big battle. So this is if you're watching Avengers and they have to get to the Infinity Stones or something. They're in this one area, and they never even get to that area. That's this movie.
Mm-hmm.
They never have the big bad fight. They do because we still get to see it, but it's not. It's
basically in a controlled environment. It's not in front of people.
I can't even believe that he did that and people didn't get that.
Yeah.
Like, that is one of the coolest things I've ever seen in a movie, even beyond the twists.
Mm-hmm.
Just the fact that you keep gearing up for this, and then he pulls the rug out from under you, and he goes, no, that was the fight.
I usually, in movies, when they set up things like locations people need to go to or things that they need to go do, sometimes that really stresses me out because it's been like 30 minutes and they still have 3 more things to do. For some reason, not this movie.
No.
And I think because I was just along for the ride. But I can understand people being like, they still have to go to the tower? Is this like a 5-hour movie? Like, how long is this thing?
Well, but yeah, and it's crazy because as the fight starts winding down, I'm kind of like, are they gonna get there? And then when they don't, you're just like, no way.
I know. So, the Horde and David are fighting. Right before that, the Horde throws 2 girls into a back of a truck or of a van. It's almost like he became the Horde, and he's like, people who are weaker than me, get in here, and I'll finish you off later. So they start fighting. Joseph, Casey, and Miss Glass are there witnessing the whole thing and are trying to figure out what to do. Staple goes up to Casey and is like, you need to do something with Kevin. You need to get Kevin here. Like, you got to do something. And it makes sense that at this point, like, Casey's like, well, it doesn't even matter if Staple is good or bad. That just needs to happen.
Yeah.
Because he's going to hurt people. So she's like, okay, I'll try to do something, although it's a while until she gets to even do anything because she could have probably been killed. And Glass is kind of watching the whole thing too, but is like the biggest smile on his face.
And he's seeing the showdown.
He's created all of this. He knows now that he's created all of this. So a SWAT team shows up too.
Yeah.
And that further complicates things.
And so I want to talk a little bit about the action in the sequence.
Yeah.
We have, and Mike Jolicki's great job on the cinematography. We have big, wide shots. The action is super clear. This sequence, to me, maybe this is a preference thing, I would say it's better than 95% of the Marvel fights in the MCU. Mm-hmm. 95. Mm-hmm. There's emotion. There's real interesting action. And there are things like him picking up the police car. That's one shot where he's doing it, and it is James McAvoy picking. I mean, obviously it's
there's
faked,
effects, but
and it's an angle I had not seen something like that before.
Yeah,
and we're seeing a lot of that kind of like guerrilla filmmaking almost, where instead of punching a car and it goes flying 600 feet or something, like he punches a car and we see it from the inside, and there's just a dent. Mm-hmm. Something that's probably practical and pretty easy to do, or visual effects wise. Yeah. Is just a couple hours of work.
Throughout the whole movie, they were showing the front courtyard of this hospital the whole movie. Yeah. So we were already very familiar with the set. Uh-huh. So when the Horde and David get split up, we know where both of them are at the whole time. Even Mr. Glass, we know where everyone is at all times. Yeah. Even though the camera hasn't been on someone for 30 seconds.
It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. So the Horde the SWAT team separate them.
Yeah.
The Horde, they both are fighting back in defense. The Horde is like on top of a guy trying to get to him. Eventually he starts eating one of them.
Yeah.
And then David fights off his dudes, and then the Horde throws him into the water tank.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is going on? How does this end? They get out of the water tank, thank goodness. And then there's a little bit of gun in the closet shot on the puddle again, even though we have seen it throughout the movie.
Yeah.
But we see water going into it. But it's like, whatever. It's just
you're
water.
thinking it's just a nice exterior shot.
Exactly.
But then the Horde is like about to rip into David.
Oh, wait, I just want to say, David, it's cool that David puts the SWAT guys like in a locker.
And he says like, I'm doing this to protect you.
Yeah, it's just so good.
And then Joseph walks in front of his dad. Actually, I think this is before what you just said, but it doesn't really matter. Yeah. He walks in front of his dad and he goes, Kevin, wait. There's something you don't know about this. And Mr. Glass says, and this is just speaking to the subversive nature of this movie. He says, no, not yet. He can't find this information out yet. He's not even saying like never. He just knows from comic books that this has to happen at the tower.
And Joseph says, because he has also read the comic books, it is like, that basically the bad guy is always not telling you something.
Yeah.
Always there is something he's keeping from you, and he's like, yeah, not yet, don't tell him yet. This is when it's revealed that Kevin's dad died on the train 177, the same train David was on in Unbreakable, which means his dad died, which means
Glass killed him.
Glass killed him, and Kevin, who had already been abused by his mom, the reason his dad went on the train was he was going to try and get custody of Kevin.
Yeah.
And it also showed him with a pamphlet of like understanding someone with DID.
Yeah.
Just like, so his only safety net was killed. And this means that Glass also created the Horde. So Glass is like, I create super people.
Yes.
Holy crap. That's cool.
And so what's insane, so he creates super people, superhumans. And we see the shot of Kevin's dad sitting down in the train, and then the camera pans out and it seamlessly transitions into the shot in the second scene of Unbreakable.
It's so good.
I can't even believe it.
I know.
I can't even believe it.
So the Horde is so confused. Shocked, if you will.
Yeah. And then the fight seems to be over. And Casey
runs up and touches him and says, Kevin Windlecrumb.
Feels like superhero to me.
Yeah. And he turns back into Kevin, and no. The Horde finds out, and the Horde pushes Glass. And as soon as he like touches him, there's the sound effect of Glass breaking.
Yeah.
Because he basically just destroyed his entire body.
Right. Yeah.
Crazy internal bleeding, I'm sure. And he's breaking like every bone in his body.
Yeah.
Then Kevin is called forth, and it is just so sweet.
His acting is...
I know.
Get out of here.
But Casey...
Jordan, get out of this room.
Casey's just like, will you stay in the light with me for a while?
Oh.
Like, please just stay with me. And it's just like, oh my gosh, I'm already tearing up at this, because what could happen?
And then he gets shot.
Yeah.
By the SWAT team, and we see a clover, a 3-leaf clover.
So when you first saw the movie, did you find that odd?
I was like, that's weird. That's what I thought.
Because the camera like seriously stopped for like a couple point seconds, and I was like, okay, that means something. Like this is the thing that's going to tie the entire movie together.
And then we see David Dunn getting drowned in a pool, in the
pothole,
the puddle, and it's just his head in there. I mean, that's it. And we see a zoom in on the tattoo, and it's another guy with it, and you're like, wait, what's going on here? And then Staple reaches out her hand, and she goes, what does she say?
Just take my hand.
Yeah.
And he does, and he sees everything.
And what's crazy is that harkens back to the end of Unbreakable.
Yep.
Elijah says, this is when we shake hands.
Yep.
So she does that, and I thought, like, when he touched her hand, she was going to help him somehow.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
But then you see this room where they're in this restaurant, and a couple people leave, and then it stops. Basically, it's revealed there's a secret organization of people, and they find superheroes, and they convince them they're not superheroes, or they kill them, because we can't have gods living among men. Pretty interesting. And don't forget, in the first movie, Unbreakable, Elijah mentions when he's explaining to him that he might have a weakness, that he had read an issue of a comic book where there was a secret coalition, and in that secret coalition, they would try and find heroes and find their weaknesses so they could kill them or capture them. So, mic drop, M. Night. Come on. That's cool.
And I think when he sees everything and he comes back too, and she's like,
did I almost convince you were an ordinary man?
Oh, and then, okay, but I want to save Glass. So we go back to Kevin, and Casey is holding him. He's dying. He's switching in and out of different personalities. Like we already said, that part is just crazy acting. But he ends on Kevin, and
he finds satisfaction.
He says I think I'm gonna stay here now. You know, like I'm gonna die as Kevin.
Yeah.
And everyone's crying. at this point. How could you not be? And it's just
it's so funny how often you say that in scenes that I've never seen you cry.
It's just so sad and just so sweet.
It is.
Because he gets resolution, because there was a real person inside of this monster, the Horde.
Yeah.
And then we get to Glass. And this part actually made me cry.
Yeah.
When his mom walks up to him and he says, Mama, I'm special. And she's like, I knew you always were. It's like making me tear up to even talk about it.
Yeah.
Because that's all he's ever wanted, was to be special.
Yeah, and he found his purpose.
Yeah.
And he says something that's interesting. And I didn't even put this together till you said he created superheroes.
Yeah.
He says, Mama, this wasn't a limited edition. This was an origin story the whole time.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there watching it and you're going, okay.
You're like, but everyone's dying. So
yeah, I don't really know how it's an origin story. And then Ellie Staple goes to a comic book shop.
Wait, I don't want to skip this part. Ellie goes up to Glass.
Oh.
And she tells him, it's just such great writing because he gets resolution.
You can't be mad that I didn't write down every line.
I am a little pissed. So she goes up to him and she tells him pretty much verbatim, you were right the whole time.
Yeah.
You are the best.
And he's like tearing up. I mean,
and she's like, you are the best of the best. And you have to understand, like you said, like there cannot be God among men. It just isn't fair.
Yeah.
But I hope that you can die with the satisfaction of knowing that you were right, which is like so cold.
Yeah.
But you know that she doesn't mean it. Because it's like, it's always really good writing when you really understand the villain. And you're kind of like, I don't want him to die though. At this point. Yeah. Like I want him.
The villain being him, you're saying?
Yes. Because it reminds me of Batman and Robin, of all movies, when Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mr. Freeze, does not die at the end. They see that he has worth. Like he can contribute to society. And they give him the chance.
Yeah.
It's just, that's like, okay, that movie's good.
We discussed that thoroughly 4 weeks ago.
It's just so often the villain just dies.
Yeah.
And it always makes sense. It's justice, whatever.
Well, it doesn't always make sense, but...
but in superhero things, it's just almost like expected.
Yeah.
But it's just like, oh, he could have been used for good.
Mm-hmm. So then, Ellie Staple goes to a comic book shop, and she's reading through some stuff, and she overhears some comic book guys talking. A little bit cheesy, a little bit hammy, I'm into it.
I don't care.
And they go...
I can basically see the word bubbles.
Yeah, that's true. And one of the guys goes, well, he's the best because... there's the guys that can beat people up, but then there's the guys with the brains, and those villains always know what's going on, and they're always a step ahead of everyone else. And they knew the whole time what was going on. And then Ellie thinks about it. Mm-hmm. And she's going, wait a second. And she runs back to the mental institution.
Which I think at this point in the movie, so earlier when Elijah was going around the hospital doing whatever you didn't know he was doing, you saw him do stuff on the computer, and you were never told what he did.
Yeah.
And at this point, you've completely forgotten that he was doing anything. You're just like, oh, he's doing bad guy stuff.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Which character were you talking about?
Elijah.
Yes. Sorry, I was trying to keep track of something. So then she goes back and she goes, hey, was any of the security footage? It was all deleted and stuff. And he goes, oh, yeah, the security guy. And then she said, was it ever downloaded at any point? And he goes, oh, that's weird. It was downloaded.
He's like, all this code starts going across the screen. And he's like, I have no idea what this is.
And then she flashes back to when she says, we have cameras set up everywhere and all this stuff. And then finally, it's revealed.
Such a great moment in that part of the movie.
She starts screaming on the cameras.
Yeah.
Because she lost.
Oh, I didn't even think that it's on the cameras.
Yep.
Oh, he did it again.
So all that happens. That's resolved. We know she's going to get her comeuppance.
And
we don't need to.
Did this happen right after the dinner? Did we already talk? This okay. So you said that they had.
I skipped the dinner.
So, but it's like in the flashback, she has this dinner, and she's like, "The problem was eradicated, and if you see fit, I'm going to go off to the next place and do this again."
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So then we see our new three main characters, who's Anya Taylor-Joy, Joseph, and Mrs. Price, and they show up, of all places, a train station. And
the train station that is also in Unbreakable. Well, it's whatever the train station's called in Philadelphia. It's very famous. And I can't remember.
All the movies.
But it's Unbreakable, it's in Split, and it's in this movie.
And they had been sent, Mr. Glass had sent them the footage. And it's all footage from the battle. And it's basically proving to everyone that these heroes are there and among us.
Yeah.
And then they go to the train station and it sends to like everyone in the world.
And I'm crying again because they're all sitting there waiting for the moment to happen. And first there's a close up on Joseph and there's a flashback with him and David. I don't remember a specific.
It's the flashback where David shushes him because he discovered that his dad is a superhero for sure.
The emotional core of Unbreakable?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm crying at that part too. And then it goes to, does it go to Mrs. Price or does it go to Casey?
I think it goes to Casey.
I think it does. And it's the moment when the Horde realizes that she is pure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Also very emotional.
And they're all wearing green, yellow, purple.
Which is also just adds to just everyone's crying. So then it goes to Mrs. Price. And what was the flashback for that one? It was when he was a kid. Is it when she's telling him
it's when she gives him a comic book, I think.
I think you're right.
On that bench.
Which is just the defining moment. Like, it just starts him off for the rest of it. She gives him his destiny.
Yes.
So
then the video's sent out and it goes to everyone, and I think we hear him say like this was an origin story or something like that. So
then Mrs. Price says that the universe is letting us in.
Yeah. So the implication being that everyone's going to find out about superheroes, and now there's a world of superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
And what's cool is, I guess Glass is the good guy at the end of the day, because he created a world of superheroes. He created David Dunn, and he created Kevin, and now he created everyone, making this movie an origin story, like he said.
I wouldn't say he's a good guy, though. Because,
it's not black and white.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. That's just what is so interesting about the whole series, is he carried on their legacy, which is good.
Yeah.
Because someone came around and was trying to snuff them out. And, yeah, I mean, he did very bad things to a lot of innocent people, which is bad. But Ellie is going around with his organization doing bad things to probably a lot of innocent people as well. You know?
Yeah.
So it's
unbelievable. Great. And now the world is going to have superheroes. Mm-hmm. And it's so poetic. Mm-hmm. It's insane. And I can't believe that this is not a revered movie.
I know.
It's actually shocking to me when I watch it. Like, I don't even understand how someone could walk away. Now, I do understand. I had some friends who went and saw this movie, and they had never seen Unbreakable. That makes sense to me. This movie doesn't make sense if you haven't seen Unbreakable. That's like going to Endgame and not seeing any other Marvel movies. It's confusing, but it's still a good movie. But
oh, yeah.
It's so good. I love this series.
Me too.
And I will say, I think I've seen most superhero movies. I think this is the auteur series.
Yeah, I agree.
I would put this above. I mean, there's different categories, I would say, but as far as like originality and just straight artistic intention, whether it all works or not, I think this is like the defining auteur trilogy. Mm-hmm. I would put The Dark Knight underneath that. Mm-hmm. I think I like some of those movies more than I like some of these. I'm not sure, though. I'm about to find out because that's the series we're covering next. Mm-hmm. But those are still like, it's not like Christopher Nolan is creating a new character or anything. He's adapting.
Well, the important part with those movies is, like, one, what does Christopher Nolan have to say about Batman?
Yeah.
And then also, they need to represent him as he should be represented.
Yeah.
Because of the source material.
Yeah. This is just insane. And everyone should watch it. If you got through this whole podcast and didn't watch it, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. That's all I got to say, though. I think we covered it. Yeah. I think we did it.
Yeah.
This is one of the biggest series that we've wanted to cover, and we finally did it, and I feel satisfied with how we covered it.
This movie, like, we've gone through all of Marvel, and I discovered that I do like most of them. I'm a Marvel fan now.
Yeah.
That being said, though, it's like I am so glad that I had to go through dozens of hours of okay movies, whatever movies, if we could get this series of superhero franchises.
Yeah.
Because without that, I don't know if we would have this.
Yeah.
Even though all of us started before it.
That's the interesting part about it.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know. I feel like we probably have a lot of new listeners now after we've had some really good guests on our Batman series. So we're happy you're here. In case you didn't know, Jordan is a great artist, and she's a writer, and she has a blog where she talks about folklore and ghost stories and stuff like that. And it's called recountandreveal.com. They're like 5-minute reads. So we haven't shouted that out in a long time.
Yeah.
So check that out. And I've probably inserted an ad for my concert coming up
Cool.
Next week on YouTube. So we'll go to that as well. This month on Patreon, MPU The Sequel, we're covering the Oscars and our predictions. And as of this recording, we only have one more movie to watch for the nominations of Best Picture. And so we'll go through all that. So join us on Patreon. It's only $3 to get an extra episode every month. So if you like this show, support us, pretty please.
Yeah.
And that's patreon.com/Micah McCaw, MICAHMCCAW. You also get music, because for those of you who don't know, I'm a musician as well. And finally, next week, we're covering the Dark Knight series. We'll be hitting Batman.
Yes, finally.
And for those of you who may be wondering, Black Widow's release date has changed again, but it seems like it's really going to happen in July. So we're getting close to covering a new release finally.
Yep.
Which will be very fun.
Yeah.
So we'll see you next week. Adios.